We have one of the rock stars of the cryptocurrencies. He worked for the old bad world of Wall Street, so he knows it all. But now he's totally into crypto, pretty much a Bitcoin maximalist. Yeah? And if he wants to debate something, he will even go out of the pool in his swimming suit and fight with Roger Ver. He's very, very courageous. You know him all. Vays, a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Not Russian, English this time, okay?
Yeah, it will be in English this time. All right. Hey, everyone. Thank you for coming to the conference. And this is a somewhat long presentation. I'm going to speak as fast as I can. I'm not even going to talk about myself. I think most of you here are familiar with my work. Please Google me on YouTube. Also, I have two conferences, Unconfiscatable and Understanding Bitcoin. They have their own YouTube channels as well. Please check out the videos from those conferences. So it's a presentation I've been going around the world doing this year. I may have to, come up with a new topic. I already have an idea. I actually thought of it like this week. So what you see behind you is the entire price history of Bitcoin up until the last maybe 5 or 6 months or so. I've been a little too busy to update the backdrop, so I don't have the rise back towards the 9,000 area. But let's go all the way to the beginning, right? I want to just remind people what is it that Satoshi actually invented. At this conference, everyone understands Bitcoin way better than some of the altcoin conferences I speak at. But let's just go through the actual statement, and it's right there in the abstract. Digital signatures provide part of the solution, but the main benefits are lost if a trusted third party is still required to prevent double spending. Double spending is mentioned before anything else that is interesting about Bitcoin. We propose a solution to the double spending problem using a peer-to-peer network. The network timestamps transactions by hashing them into an ongoing chain of hash-based proof of work, forming a record that cannot be changed without redoing the proof of work. Satoshi was solving the double spend problem, and after a decade of trying to come up with a solution, proof of work was the ultimate solution. In order to get that achieved, Adam Back's work of Hashcash was also utilized. That's why it's there in the credits. We will get back to that. It wasn't until late 2010 that Bitcoin found its first use case, but it didn't actually even find the real use case. The speculation of a use case was enough to send Bitcoin going from under 10 cents all the way to about 50 cents, like more than tripling, quadrupling in price on a rumor that WikiLeaks should start accepting Bitcoin as donations because Visa, MasterCard, PayPal had cut them off. WikiLeaks, Satoshi recommended not to do that because Bitcoin was still very fragile at the time, nor the kind of attention it would get was going to be, didn't really want that kind of attention. So WikiLeaks didn't do it. But then the Silk Road use case is the same use case. It's the use case of censorship-resistant value transfer. Silk Road utilized it as of early 2011. I believe it launched in February. And by the summer, Silk Road had gotten the attention of a U.S. senator from New York named Chuck Schumer, who I really got to get my hands on this video, who in a 34-second video managed to teach people how to use Tor, use Silk Road, and what is Bitcoin. It's a feat I am still not able to achieve because this presentation is 30 minutes. That certainly helped drive the price of Bitcoin all the way to $30, and then it had one of its probably the biggest crash it ever had, from 30 all the way down to 2. So while I heard about those use cases of Bitcoin, a censorship-resistant value transfer, for me personally, it wasn't enough to drop everything I was doing in finance and go all, well, not all in financially, but go all in mentally into Bitcoin. For me, that didn't happen until 2013, when a more important use case than censorship-resistant value transfer and like the light bulb goes off. And that use case took place right here in Europe, and specifically Cyprus. When a Cyprus government confiscated 50% of everybody's money above 100,000 euros in the banks, that's when the light bulb finally went off. and having a decent income and a decent standard of living, watching this happen in the developed world, the first thing I said was, oh my God, this can happen in any country. The government is just going to come and take your money. I believe this is happening in Italy right now as we speak, right, with the pension. Was it Italy? 50%, same thing, right? I have to read up on those stories. I mean, this is what got me into Bitcoin. This was April 2013, and that is when I realized that Bitcoin is the first unconfiscatable asset humans have ever owned in history. It's the only thing you own that cannot be taken from you by someone with a bigger gun. And the word unconfiscatable did not exist. And it's great because just last year I was able to get the domain, form the LLC, start a conference, and hopefully we will get this word into the dictionary. But it's not just, you know, on a big scale bank stuff where they can just confiscate your money. In the US, for example, in 2014, law enforcement stole more money from people than burglars robbing homes. The concept of civil asset forfeiture, where law enforcement sees you have cash and they say, we either think you're going to use this cash for criminal activity or you earned this cash from criminal activity without any proof whatsoever, allows them to confiscate that cash. And they did a better job at stealing money than robbers did. So, however, the unconfiscatable property of Bitcoin, while absolutely critical, is still user dependent, because when Silk Road was finally shut down in October of 2013, the government was able to confiscate 144,000 Bitcoin because it wasn't properly protected. Thank God they only sold it for $48 million in 2014-15, near the bottom of the market, because if they had waited 2 more years, they could have gotten 2.4 billion, and if this article waited 3 more days to write it, that would have been 4.8 billion. So this article almost timed the top, and the sale almost timed the bottom. So that was really, really timely. And but all these things together caused the big run-up into the 2013 bubble top. And we all know how bubbles end. But at the top of that bubble, there was another example of, yes, Bitcoin is unconfiscatable, but only if you properly protect it, which Mt. Gox also did not. However, I don't fault Mt. Gox too much, because if you actually do the research on Mt. Gox, how many people are aware that Mark Karpelès did not start Mt. Gox and he actually bought it? That's great. How many of you know who he bought it from? Well, a few less hands go up. So Mark Karpelès bought Mt. Gox from a man named Jeb McCaleb. He bought it around February. He took it over around March. And in April, he discovered 80,000 missing Bitcoin in Mt. Gox. So he basically bought a fractional reserve exchange. The 80,000 missing Bitcoin was about a $64,000 problem the moment he bought it. But around the time he discovered it, it started to become a $1 million problem, and that only got worse. And it really did get worse, because about a month later, Mt. Gox got hacked. Some of the forensics went back to Jeb McCaleb's computer. The whole thing is very, very, you know, shady, but nothing new in the crypto space. And here's an email exchange where Jeb McCaleb is basically telling Mark Karpelès he should mine the Bitcoin or buy it somewhere, or maybe use a bot that Mt. Gox has to create more. We had the bubble, and both of the properties of unconfiscatable and censorship-resistant value transfer were on full display at the bottom of the bear market. And this was something, and while a lot of us were in a a really depressed situation going into the summer of 2015, I could not take my eyes off of the Greek banking crisis. And that was, to me, absolutely fascinating. When your money at the bank, the government basically says you can only withdraw 60 euros per day of your own money from the bank. And that was taking place for about a week or two. And then over the weekend, they said, okay, 60 per day is a little bit bad. Well, how about we let you withdraw 420 euros for the week? So when that happens, what happens Monday morning? Well, Monday morning, this happens, right? Because everyone's going to run to the ATM the moment they are open, the moment the law changes, to withdraw their entire 420 euro, because for all they know, later in the day, they're going to drop that to 20 euros a day. And this picture is no different than New York City in 1907. A lot of people talk about the stock market crash of 1989, the financial panic of 1907 was probably bigger. This is the financial panic that directly led to the creation of the Federal Reserve in order to try to stabilize things so that wouldn't happen again. The picture's over there in the middle. That's Weimar, Germany in 1923. You can see that you get a better use case out of your money by burning it for heat here in Germany because it was a pretty gets kind of cold here in the winter. The picture down there, that is, again, that's the USA in the 1930s after, the whole devaluation and the gold confiscation. You can see once again burning the money. And another picture in color from Zimbabwe. This is their hyperinflation in 2007. We can take this presentation in several directions, but let's go back to that 1934, 1933 time period in the U.S. when the U.S. government decided to confiscate everybody's gold under the penalty of $10,000, which was actually worth something at the time because you were still gold-backed, and or 10 years imprisonment. Of course, the reality of the situation was that the U.S. government did not send their goons with guns door to door. It was the equivalent of a phone call to confiscate the gold from the banks. And they just printed new money that no longer said this is backed by gold. This brings us to Bitcoin once again. How many of you read the Bitcoin Standard? Should have a lot more hands go up than usually when I do this. Not enough. That is, hey, come on, guys. I think it's a very good book by Seyfeddin Ammous. I wonder what his next book's going to be about. Probably the pictures on the right. So in that book, he explains what hard money actually is. Let me read a few passages. If people choose a hard money with a high stock-to-flow ratio as a store of value, their purchasing of it to store it would increase demand for it, causing the rise in its price, which would incentivize its producers to make more of it. But because the flow is small compared to existing supply, even a large increase in new production is unlikely to depress the price significantly. Hard money, by taking the question of supply out of the hands of governments, and would force everyone to be productive to society instead of seeking to get rich through the fool's errand of monetary manipulation. International economic summits are convened where world leaders negotiate each other's acceptable currency devaluation, making the value of a currency an issue of political will. For every other money, as its value rises, those who can produce it will start producing more of it. Whether it's rice stones, seashells, silver, gold, copper, or government money, everyone will have an incentive to try and produce more. Bitcoin is the hardest money ever invented. The growth in its value cannot possibly increase its supply. It can only make the network more secure and immune to attacks, and it makes Bitcoin fundamentally different from every other money. Reading that book actually helped me understand why silver and all the old coins are even more useless than I originally thought. So let's summarize all of this up. Here are the three properties where Bitcoin competes well today with the global financial system, whether it's US dollars, euros, or those that think gold should still be the monetary standard. It is unconfiscatable with examples of Cyprus and civil forfeiture. It is uncensorable with the examples of Greece, WikiLeaks, Silk Road, and any other transfer. It is uninflatable. It is harder money than gold. In a few years after the next halving, less new Bitcoin will be coming into existence than gold. Satoshi knew that these properties were absolutely critical, and in 2010 stated the following: the nature of Bitcoin is such that once version 0.1 was released, the core design was set in stone for the rest of its lifetime. But the immutability is not a feature of the Bitcoin software, which is trivial to change for anyone with coding skills, but rather is grounded in the economics of the currency and network and stems from the difficulty of getting every member of the network to adopt the same changes to the software. Back in it looks like early 2016, I wrote an article talking about the use cases of Bitcoin that can't be achieved with the current currencies today. These are all things that are perfectly legal and accepted in some parts of the world, but not all parts of the world. So let's talk about where Bitcoin still needs to improve a little bit. It's not great, and that's, of course, scalability and also fungibility and privacy. It's significantly better than it was before, and I'm expecting full scalability of Bitcoin thanks to Batch 32, SegWit. If companies like the worst wallet in the world, blockchain.info, actually starts adopting SegWit one day after saying that they were ready for SegWit in January of 2017. It's still nowhere in sight. Also would be nice to see BitPay, or maybe these companies will, I don't know, go away and clean up the mempool. Schnorr is going to help a lot. Schnorr will also help with the fungibility privacy. We have Bulletproof, StumbleBit. You've seen presentations on these. You can see how the fees got out of control a little bit at the end of 2017. Well, got out of control a lot, actually, in 2017. But SegWit started getting more adopted. We're still stuck at the 50% area, and it really needs to go higher. Schnorr is going to give us significant more protection from the quantum computer fears. So scalability and fungibility are doing well. Let's talk about where Bitcoin is still struggling and may struggle for a time to come. And that is, of course, price volatility, because eventually Bitcoin will need to be somewhat closer to be a unit of account. Bitcoin has been a unit of account for me for years. I always denominate everything in Bitcoin. Sometimes it's rough, like about 6 months ago. Sometimes it's great, like at the top of 2017, and it's starting to get good again. And of course, coin security, being in control of your own private keys is very, very scary. Now, volatility, Bitcoin is, of course, the most volatile of the popular assets. Not all the time. You can see the stock market and oil and occasionally gold do become more volatile for short stretches. Here's the volatility of Bitcoin going down over time, and it's being compared down here to the euro versus the dollar. I would love to see a day where the US dollar to the Bitcoin exchange rate is more stable than the euro to dollar. That would be absolutely great. Here's a giant list of all the currencies that hit hyperinflation since 1900, with the exception of France in 1795. Everything else is the hyperinflations in the 20th century. Almost all of them have to do with socialism and communism. So again, it shouldn't be a huge surprise there. Now, the book where I got that from ended in 2007 with Zimbabwe. So I had to do a bunch of work to find all of the currencies since 2007 that have hit hyperinflation. The definition of hyperinflation is a 50% devaluation of your currency in a single month. And we can see right here we have Russia, Ukraine. Everyone knows our Venezuela issues still ongoing. Argentina had their problems. The most recent one is Turkey, and there was Zimbabwe round 2. Okay, so plenty of things there. Here is Venezuela. Eventually the government admits that the black market exchange rate is correct, and they became perfectly in sync. This is Zimbabwe Part 2 from 2017, where their second currency went back into hyperinflation. They're pretty much all political events, whether it's war, whether it's a social regime change. No matter how much money the U.S. prints, they will not be going into hyperinflation, because the only thing that matters for your currency is the confidence that your people have in that currency, which is, kills me in these debates against the Bcash people, where they're saying everyone needs to use your currency. It needs to be, velocity of money, velocity of money. Venezuela has the fastest velocity of money in the world. I mean, you can pay me in Venezuelan pesos as long as I can instantly convert it to something like the US dollar, right? So, I mean, if Bcash people want their currency to be more like the Venezuelan peso, just print more of it. You can easily change the code. You are totally centralized. And then it will be a transactional currency, because the moment someone gets paid in Bcash, they're immediately converted to something else. So again, I don't understand their whole concept. We also had crazy one-day shocks in traditional fiat currencies. The British pound during the Brexit moved 10% in one day. When the Swiss peg broke, it moved 30% against the euro. Completely insane. I can't remember the last time Bitcoin moved 30% in a single day. So just because you're in a developed nation doesn't mean you are immune from these problems. Of course, the biggest issue for Bitcoin, and hopefully there will be much better solutions, is the security of your Bitcoin is still incredibly, incredibly challenging. I mean, Binance was just hacked. Everyone's getting hacked. And it's a two-way problem, right? Internal hacks or external hacks. Sometimes you don't know, though eventually everything gets figured out. I always forget how long this presentation is. So what can take Bitcoin to the next level? What kind of more economic shocks will give Bitcoin a much greater value? Well, I am here in Europe, in Germany, and you guys have been trying to keep the European currency and the whole region together for what's starting to become an unreasonable amount of time, and I think eventually that will not last. I do think that the odds are greater than 50% that some of the nations on the euro will go back to their currencies. We heard presentation yesterday about Greece, how they almost left and went back to the drachma, their old currency. Italy is always on the brink, and I do think that a breakup of the common currency, the euro, would be a huge boom to Bitcoin.
It's inevitable.
I agree. It is inevitable. Now, all the governments in the world want to eliminate cash. This is the next huge boom to Bitcoin, the elimination of cash. Great report from the Harvard Business Review, where they talked about the three elements why governments want to eliminate cash. One of them is those pictures of running to the bank, called a bank run. You can't have a bank run if there is no cash, because there is nothing to withdraw. There are no more ATMs. ATMs go to the museum when governments eliminate cash and go digital. That's reason number one. Reason number two, without cash, you can't exit the system, so governments can set any monetary policy that they like. I spoke at a conference called Reinventing Bretton Woods, though no one on stage seemed to be actually interested in reinventing Bretton Woods and going back to the gold standard. One of the speakers was Nouriel Roubini, talking about a 10% negative interest rate for holding your money in the bank and not spending. I told him that is impossible. You don't realize that Bitcoin exists. Even if you eliminate cash, people will exit the system through Bitcoin. And of course, those are the two reasons. And the biggest reason, of course, is because every government thinks that all of us are tax evaders, and that is why they have not given us the utopia that we deserve, or they think we deserve. And all we have to do is give them more time and, of course, more money, and then they will solve all of our problems. In India, of course, this is probably the biggest problem, where they estimate 30 to 44% of all the money that the government earns, they are shorted by 45% because of such a cash economy, probably why India tried to eliminate cash, but based on this chart, because they're all the way on the right, because they're all the way to the bottom, they are not technologically ready to eliminate cash, but being all the way on the right, they benefit the most. You see, you guys are up here. This means, and you're red, that means you will benefit the most. You'll benefit quite a bit. Only China and France and like Mexico will benefit more by eliminating cash, and you're also most technologically ready to do so. So according to this, you guys are ready for that elimination of cash. In France, if you're going to buy anything over 1,000 euros as a French citizen, you have to identify yourself with full KYC. In the US, one state passed a law that you can't sell your stuff for cash. If you want to sell a bicycle to your friend, you better accept a credit card or a check. I'm not sure how well that law is being enforced. And we're back to Germany. A few years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, you may not even know, but a law was passed that you're supposed to report to the government all of your valuable possessions. So basically, if you have a painting on your wall or a coin, anything that has anything that like painting, old bottles of wine, anything with collector value over 100 euros, you're actually supposed to report to the government so that they know how much money you're actually worth and probably used to tax you on that stuff in the future. All right, I'm going to take one more minute, and then maybe we'll have time for some questions. I want to talk about Bitcoin maximalism real quick. I love this tweet from Giacomo Zucco, where he said, Bitcoin maximalism, also known as the moderate common sense, that Bitcoin might succeed, and it's in the middle of the spectrum. There are two additional extremes. You have the no-coiner that not even Bitcoin can succeed. This is your Nouriel Roubini and Peter Schiff. And you have the multi-coiner. This is, Bitcoin isn't that innovative at all, and my clone is better. That's your Vitalik Buterin and Charlie Lee and all the other guys. Everything about Bitcoin starts and ends with proof of work. I'm not going to get into it, and this might have to be my last slide. I just want to point something out. This is an email exchange. I just want to briefly read from the bottom of it. Personally, I like the idea of Hashcash if and only if it is structured like a real currency as opposed to simply proof of work. In the real world, you pay for the resources used. In any case, this should also apply to peer-to-peer and other computer systems. Of course, getting Hashcash workable as a real currency is extremely difficult. I've thought of a scheme that would work. Coins are signed by the owner and can only be changed, signed to a different owner by said owner, except you need a decentralized central database of all the Hashcash that's been minted. Unworkable, shit, spent twice problem. Who and when wrote this email? This was the 15-year-old Peter Todd in 2001 in an email exchange with Hal Finney. So when people come up like yesterday and say, I solved all of Bitcoin's problems, the question is, where were you on a Saturday at 15 years old trying to solve this problem 10 years ago, right? Anything in proof of stake has already been considered useless long ago. Slide.mining is not actually inefficient, and it's good. Not going to get into these. We're going to skip why Litecoin is useless and Monero. The next time I'm here, I'll probably do an entire presentation with this chart as the background. This is I really wanted to fit all of the shitcoins into a Venn diagram of 3 circles. That was impossible. They're just too scammy in all directions. So we'll probably go into this and explain why all of them are useless. Thank you so much, guys. And maybe there's time for a question.
There is time. For sure there's time for a question. I guess you have many difficult questions for Tone. Please, take the mic. Come on.
I just want to say that was your best presentation yet. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. You may also praise, but critical question, please.
You have an opinion about MMT, the modern money theory. I think it's quite discussed now in America.
Not really. I mean, it'll be a really long discussion, but we'll see how it works. Look, my bigger fear is deflationary money always fails. And the money doesn't fail, humans fail. So just like the gold standard got replaced by a inflationary fiat standard, I can make the argument that it's not a bad thing, right? I mean, look at us. We're sitting here today. I was able to fly to Germany. I mean, not as quickly as back in the Concorde days. Probably the only example of technology going backwards where they removed the faster plane. But sometimes I play my own devil's advocate where I say, look, I don't know if the internet would have developed if we were still on the gold standard all throughout the 20th century, right? So for all the inflation that happened and the easy money that happened, I mean, some technology does come out of it, so it's hard to say. But it does get out of control and eventually things collapse. So maybe it's good that we're going back and forth. I do fear that, what happens when, let's say, maybe not our kids, but our grandkids. So let's move forward to, 40, 50 years from now. I mean, you don't know what the mentality of Bitcoiners will be then. And I would not be surprised if the code changes and it's like going off of gold onto fiat, going off of Bitcoin being 21 million hard cap in order to give Bitcoin inflation, because you don't know if there'll be a push to change back into the inflation world. But I would love to give the deflationary currency a try for 2 to 3 generations and see what happens.
More questions? Yes, please.
May you please share the slides with us?
The slides?
Yeah.
Oh, they're publicly available.
Oh,
so they are on a software called Prezi, Prezi. If anyone used the slides. And if you just Google my name and the word Prezi, you'll find my entire account, and every single presentation I've ever done is there. There's no words, it's just slides. You're welcome to use any of them.
But
you.
we'll have the
public.
videos of all talks online a little bit later after the conference, all on
And,
YouTube. On the Unchained
and you can
channel.
find this presentation on my YouTube channel as well in a playlist called Presentations. I've done it before, so it's been recorded from other conferences. But the slides are public. Just Google for them, Prezi and Tone Vays.
Thank you very much.
Okay. More questions? Don't be shy.
Oh, back there. Come on up
Please come to the
to the mic so that it gets recorded into the
and we can
audio.
all hear your lovely voice.
You mentioned the book, The Bitcoin Standard. I'm actually in the middle of that book right now myself. It's been beat up and traveled, carried around around the world. Yes, it's great. It's kind of hard to focus with everything going on to get it until the end because there's no time since I've started, but I love it. Every time that I have a time off, yes. I have a question actually about your view. Yes, and I'm quite new, so you see, and I see in the news, the decentralization is now being regulated by the United States, by many countries, Russia, et cetera, et cetera. How do you see this personally, how that this could develop in the future? Because we clearly are now in a position where we can move. Do you see this, the second question, as altogether basically as something where we will then be able to be on par as like the United States, there's a Republican and will we be able now together to negotiate different, because of course being on the same level or we're not going to get there, but can we really make a difference before they crack down and tell us to get out?
So if decentralization can be regulated, it was never decentralized, right? So decentralization is very difficult, very inefficient, very slow. Decentralization is absolutely terrible. You should only use a decentralized tool when it's worth the gross inefficiency that it provides. Everyone complains that Bitcoin is destroying the environment with the mining structure. Great. Tell the government to stop printing money and stop confiscating money and be more responsible and allow people to treat money as property, eliminate all money laundering laws, and they'll probably kill Bitcoin. The prior example of decentralization was file sharing and BitTorrent. And you know what? The industry caught up. They made you listen to that song, watch that movie, simpler, faster, not too expensive, and it's actually worth it to pay for it to avoid all the viruses you were getting back when you were downloading. So all aspects of decentralization have a chance to fail, but they only fail when the governments relax their laws, not go against it. And this is also why all of these altcoin projects, they're all centralized. You can regulate them. You can take them down. You're not going to take down Bitcoin. The only way to take down Bitcoin is to relax all laws that have to do with money and not print it.
I don't understand. Okay, I'm new, 2 months since I got into the whole field. What do you mean, why relax the law and not go against it? Because you mean if they go against it, other people will, basically that's marketing for us because other people are
Bitcoin becomes more useful.
Right, because they'll see that it's actually better, so they'll actually push against that going back from the government, right? Am I understanding you correctly?
Kind of. It's we can talk offline.
Okay, cool.
We can talk offline.
Okay. The good news
Right,
is
thank you.
we'll have a panel later, so there'll be more
Yeah.
chance to ask questions
I
to
think
Tone
we can
and
talk
all the
about
other
that topic.
gentlemen. But now we have a new speaker, so thank you so much, Tone. It was great. Oh, okay. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.